All right, man. We're live. I'm here with joined by AJ Ramos tonight, former MLB All-Star with the Miami Marlins and a few other teams as well. But AJ, thanks for coming on, man. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. Looking
Yeah,
forward to getting into it.
yeah, no doubt. So you were a successful ball player, and now you've transitioned into life after baseball. You're on the other side of the microphone, so to speak, these days with the locker room. But um, how's that been going? Well, like, what's that transition been like? Is it fun for you right now?
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's been once I got done playing, I was like, all right, what do I want to do? That whole transition piece of figuring out who I was separate from the game. I think uh, whenever I was coming up and my path to make it to the big leagues, I had to be all in on baseball. I had to be 100% baseball mind, and everything that I did was to support that. So going from that to not having to or not all that stuff being gone now, basically, I mean, everything that I was going for, or that I was trying to learn and get better for, I no longer did. So that absence of that, I was having to figure out, all right, well, who am I without thinking about just baseball stuff or thinking about optimizing myself for that. So then I started thinking about, like, well, I miss talking about the game. I miss talking about the mindsets. I miss talking about just routines and stuff. And so I said, well, what is something that I like to do? I talk about that, and decided to start a podcast where I talk to other athletes. And I was interested in more than just baseball. I want to talk to, I talked to tennis players, football players, and I want to talk to other athletes outside of baseball too, because I find that there's a common space there, and everyone has a different way to get ready, and different mindset and preparation. And the goal for me is to see what that process is like and learn from that, and also, be able to educate people who are watching it as well, who want to be successful in a sport or in a corporate or whatever it is. But that transition it took a little bit, and I think it's still going for me. I'm still actively transitioning, because you don't spend 35 of your years of your life and then it just be like, all right, that's it, that we're gone now. You know what I mean? That's So it's still in there for a certain amount of time. So just trying to work through it and see what comes up.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, usually I ask that towards the end, but I was just curious off the bat, like how you're approaching that. So I've watched some of the clips on YouTube, man. It's cool, and I think you've been interviewing. So I'm from Philadelphia, by the way. So I grew up a Phillies fan. I know you threw to JT Realmuto for a number of years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then I saw you down, and I think it was spring training. You were interviewing like guys like Brandon Marsh and Zach Wheeler, some of those
Yep.
guys. So yeah, just diving into those mindsets, I think it's such a cool thing just to for the average fan, right? Just to get behind that and understand what it takes to get to the level that you played at.
Well, even just an understanding for me. I mean, all those guys, we all have like slightly different mindsets on how we prepare and how we um, download information, basically. And for me, the way I did it was I used like negativity, or I used a lot of those things. I would seek out, where people were not talking, or I would seek out ways to fuel my fire, basically. You know what I mean? So someone is saying, like, man, you're a pretty good pitcher. Even though that's a compliment, in my mind, I took it as an insult, because I found what do you mean pretty good, as an insult? You know what I mean? Like, the pretty good part was something I was like, no, no, I'm damn good. I'm about to go out there and show you how good I am. You know what I mean? So I was always focused on finding the negative to fuel me. And people like Wheeler and Marsh, Wheeler slightly different. His fuel source is not the same as the negativity. He's all more about comfort. He's trying to be in a zone where he's even kill, because he's got to pitch a whole game. He didn't have to be as fiery, and then he has electric stuff. Brandon Marsh is more geared towards finding the fun, finding the lightness of it all, feeding off the crowd, and more of those things. Whereas if I was paying attention to the crowd, that would throw me off my game. You know what I mean? Like I wanted like isolation, basically, so that I can pitch because I didn't want to be aware of so much. So everyone has different ways of doing it, and learning how each person navigates that space, and then kind of taking some of those things and implementing it into my life, kind of allows me to expand on my how I see life, because that made me great, right? The finding the negativity was what fueled me to get to the big leagues. And when there's something that's that potent, it doesn't just stop at the field or stop with just baseball. My mind was geared to just seek the negative in a lot of things. So like I was seeing a lot of negativity, and that was as a way, or that for me I had to switch, because it's when you're constantly thinking about negative things, like for a podcast, it's like, oh, I only got 30 views. Oh, that's not good, so I got to do something else, like, you know what I mean, instead of like understanding where you are with everything and finding a different way to look at it, because that negativity is exhausting at times, and it can lead down some bad paths.
No, no, for sure. But you were able to channel that, obviously. I mean, you got to the point where you did as a big leaguer. Where did that stem from, you think? Because I heard you just talking about, the relationship with your dad growing up, and it sounded like he was hard on you, but almost in a good way. Like he held you to a really high standard. He had you visualizing things when you were a kid. Like what was that upbringing like a little bit? Uh,
Yeah, he wasn't, I mean, he was hard on me, but it's because he knew I had something more within myself as well. And I think you can't be hard on people, you can't push people that don't really want to really want to pursue something, because then you're beating them down. For me, uh, my dad was always made me conscious of the ways that I can be better. And I don't think he ever meant it for me to look at things in a negative way. More so, just always know that there's a way to get better. That you are never set, and there's more ways to get better. So, but in my infant mind, or young mind, I started to see like, oh, um, I didn't. I walked four guys. That's a bad thing. Instead of just knowing that, like, oh, I could, if I walked three, that'd be better. So the way I normalized it is I was looking for the negativity in things, instead of like the way my dad meant it, was like there's always a way to improve. But at the same time, um, he got more angry at me if I wasn't hustling, or if I wasn't, he never got mad at me for making an error or for walking somebody. Now if I was trying to overthrow, or I was trying to not let the guy hit the ball, like I was not scared, but like I was like, oh, this guy is a home run hitter, I'm gonna throw these pitches. If they were non-competitive pitches, that means I was out of my realm of like, I wasn't I was trying to do too much. And so like he would like have more talks with me about those things, instead of like, I made a fielding error or things like that. So he was just very particular, and honestly created a great mindset so that I was able to pick out things and figure out how to be better, and not allow things to affect me mentally. And like you mentioned, the mental part, I was doing visualization since I was like 8, 9 years old. We'd go through these mechanics over and over and over, so that whenever I was on the mound, I no longer had to think about my mechanics. Because again, when you're doing something, and you're doing something with the 100% intent and effort, if there's any thought within that motion of how your body is moving in that motion, that's focus taken off of what you're trying to do, facing the hitter. So um, it was cemented in my body through visualization. And then the other part of the visualization was that before I went to bed every night, I would throw an inning in my mind. And the cool thing was that he would always make me paint a full picture. Where are we at? Who's in the stands? What's the temperature? Who are you facing? Where did you throw that ball? What did it sound like? Like, so to make sure that I was actually visualizing the success. And I did that over and over. And I've said this before. I pitched in millions of innings in the big leagues before I ever got there, because every day I was thinking about pitching in the big leagues and what that would be like. And I think that was very important for me to make it to the big leagues.
So visualization, like, so you're talking about, and it can be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you? I mean, you visualized it, and then you had already thrown those innings. Did you talk to other guys in the locker room about that? Like, were they doing similar thing? You know, because I feel like some guys can just go out there and do it, and they're like, "Dude, what are you talking? How can you just visualize yourself? You're not actually
No,
doing it."
I didn't talk about that,
Okay.
coming up. I mean, now if I was, doing the same thing, I'd speak about it because then it'd be like, oh, it's kind of like a trendy thing to do now. You know what I mean? It's like visualize your success, be great, and I know I'm making fun of people that are saying that stuff, but like that's exactly what I was doing. But back then it was like you didn't want to say that stuff. You're like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? And I just didn't want. I had my process, and I didn't want anybody to talk about my process because, when you're younger, you care about you care more about what people think about you, and I didn't want that to like mess up this progress because I felt it. I felt like I remember like my heart would be racing just thinking about these scenarios, and the first time I realized it worked was, my dad was like, all right, go throw. And I had a big game. I was like 12 years old and I had a big game the night um, after this night. He was telling me, he was like, hey, pitch a few innings. And I really like, when you're asleep, when you're in your bed, before you go to bed, pitch a few innings. And I really visualized it. I had a dream about it. And the next day I went out and I was not nervous. It was like I had been there before, but because like I visualized everything down to the other team's uniforms, to where their parents were sitting, to the sound of some of the parents' voices, the other team's parents. And I visualized almost every scenario. Like, so I visualized, oh, what if you walk people? Every time I visualized like a negative thing, I did another visualization where I overcame that visualization, that negative one. So like it was always like I was able to get out of any situation that I was ever in because I visualized the negative parts of it. But I made sure I made sure that the majority of the visualizations were going to be the positive one. Or if there was a negative spin on things, I would somehow figure out my way to get out of it. And I think that's probably why I was so good in pressure situations or in bases loaded situations, because that was one of the things that I visualized the most is like bases loaded, no outs, your team is up by one, best hitter is up at the plate right now. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? And like, I get chills thinking about it right now because I did that over and over and over. So when I got in those situations, I was always chill. If you look at video of me in the big leagues, when I was in those situations, you would never have known, as far as like, by the way I look when I'm walking around, my breathing. I'm looking at guys now that I'm, on the media side of it. I look at guys in these situations and I know which one's going to mess up. I can see the breathing is like they're sipping air into
Mhm.
their body, and their breathing is so high up in their chest, and I'm like, man, this guy's gonna blow it. I can just see those things. So I think a lot of that stuff can be nipped in the bud if you constantly put yourself in those situations and know that no matter how bad the situation is, you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you still? So was that a big thing for you? Breathing. I mean, that's something that I've become more conscious of, and probably didn't think of as much when I was playing college baseball. But now, even the start of this, like I'm excited to interview and everything, but you kind of lose track of that a little bit. But
Yeah.
is that something that you were super conscious of and still are now that you're interviewing? Now that you're on the other side of it, like has that
Definitely.
translated over?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm doing interviews, I think there are times where, because I had a speech impediment when I was younger,
Hmm.
so speaking for me can almost bring up like the similar feeling of what you would say yips in baseball, you know, and I'll start stuttering or I'll start like losing track of what I'm saying or whatever it is. So I've learned to sometimes take a breath and allow that breath to, enter me and then out, and then start to speak and like, have more pauses and stuff like that. But whenever I was playing, um, I wasn't as big into breath, but when I watched back tape, I always took a deep breath right before I pitched. And I think it was just, I did it instinctively. You know what I mean? It was just like, I recognized that whenever I was tighter, whenever my shoulders were up, when I was tight in my set position right before I was about to pitch, that that tension didn't allow me to throw as fluidly as I wanted to. And so my whole routine was crafted from, before, what I do before the game, what I do during the game, and what I do after. It was all crafted just through years of experience with everything. And so, like, if you watch my delivery, where you watch me get the sign from the catcher, from JT Remuto, when I come set, you always see me moving. You always see like a slight wiggle. I did that wiggle to like ease the tension in my body. I want this fluidity. I want this dance, because that's where the best pitches come from. And then I would finally come set, and then I take a deep breath and then go. And after that breath, it was like thoughtless. I tried, like, the times where I was good, it was, every thought was gone. It was execute. That's it. Just execute this pitch. And the times where I was bad, it was like, okay, leg lift, blah, blah, blah. I started to think of everything that I was doing. And when you're in that space, especially if you're thinking about how you're talking or how you're speaking, you're going to get tripped up. You know what I mean? So the more you can take that breath and relax a little bit, relax those shoulders, the more that you allow things to come to you instead of you forcing things. Because I find myself doing that in interviews. I find myself thinking so much of the next question that I'm not listening to the question. And because I'm afraid to like forget something. But I know that whenever I'm in this relaxed state, I'm listening, I'm looking at body language, I'm in this space, I'm able to craft 10 questions. And then like I use the questions that I came up with as like oh, okay, now I asked all those questions. Now I'm gonna ask these now. You know what I mean? So like it's a flow state, and I'm finding ways to translate that flow state from baseball to just all of life. And that's still something that I'm trying to, get in tune with, but I'll get there for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's definitely a an art and a science. I mean, this is probably the 50th one of these I've done. But I was looking back at one of your early interviews. Who was the Super Bowl? I think
Ernest
he won a
Jones.
Super.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I think you were sitting there. You had a card, and like you could tell you were looking at it early on. But then like some of them, and it was still an awesome interview. But then some of the more recent ones, it's almost like you're just super present.
Yeah.
When you're talking. Yeah, so that's just something I'm trying to be more conscious of myself, So
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and it's the same thing in sports. If you do the work before, then you just allow it to come out. Now, if I didn't know somebody and I'm interviewing them or on the spot without preparing, I'm going to be a little more tense, because I'm having to come up with stuff like right off the bat, and I'm going to have to use my experience as an athlete uh, to relate more. But when you do the work and you do the research and you do all the things, you're like, I know all this stuff. All I got to do is now talk and react. So like when you do the work and it's in your body or in your mind, you can be more reactive. You can play with it a little bit. I can say something that you're like, well, I wasn't going to ask this question before, but now it sparked my memory. Instead of when you're trying to be, I got to ask one question like this, and the next question, and the next question. I may throw you off like I just did earlier, just by starting off with the thing that you end with. You know what I mean? And so like now, if you weren't prepared, then you might be like, I don't know, that wasn't supposed to happen. But
yeah,
when you're prepared, you're like, okay, cool. Let's talk about this right now. I was gonna get into it later, but let's talk about it right now, like you did. You know what I mean? So the work before the game is very, very important. And when you do the work, it brings an extra confidence, because you have that like, well, I know how to talk. I know that I did my research, so that everything's all good. Everything's going to be great, and you're more confident. And when you're more confident, you read the situation a little bit better, and you're able to spin off on different things and just be in flow, basically.
for sure. No, for sure. So yeah, man, it's so true. So you were an MLB closer. I mean, I can't think of too many other things in sports that the pressure is that high. Um, can you just walk me through the emotion of maybe getting the call, the whoever it is, bench coach or pitching coach, or whoever calls down in the bullpen, and then you're starting to get going, and then they open that gate and you're coming out to the field. Like, what is that? What's that emotional roller, or maybe it's not a, like, to your point, it's probably not an emotional roller coaster because you're prepared, but just curious to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. That's one of the most pressure situations in all of sports. Maybe like a kicker, which is kind of
Yeah, that's
funny.
what I was thinking of.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like a kicker that's supposed to win the game. And I feel like it's even more pressure for a kicker because the team does all the work, and then it's like if you miss this game, if you miss a game over.
Hmm.
Depending on if we're home or away, there's another chance for our team to come back, as a closer. But yeah, so the most nervous I ever was right when that phone rang, and even though I knew it was me, that the phone was for. So all of a sudden that phone rings, and every bullpen phone has like this like obnoxious ring because there's the crowd's loud, whatever. So it's just like a crazy ring. It's a distinct ring that like if I hear it now, I'd like jump up. Yeah, I like get
Some
I get my heart
PTSD.
rate going, bro. Like it's crazy. So sitting there, well, for the most part, when you're closing a game, you understand. You start watching the game, and you're like, all right, it's about to be my turn to go in. So like you start getting the thoughts going, and then this is where I do my visualization. Like in my head, I'm watching the game, and I just picture. I'd see where the lineup was going, and I'm like, all right, I'm probably going to face these guys, and so I start pitching against them in my head, and I wouldn't make it only them. I would just once I had an idea who was coming up, I'd understand like, all right, they may switch a guy, they may put another lefty in there because they see righties better or whatever it is. So then I would just put like a figure in the box, and then I would just throw my pitches in my mind just off of that. And then once the phone rang, just when my juices started going, everything starts to go. And then I would try to work on my breath there. I try to like take deep breaths because that time before I go to play is the most nervous I am. It's like I'm never that nervous. You kind of feel nauseous. A lot of guys in the bullpen, right before it's around their time to pitch, a lot of them go use number two. Like they get the nervous shits is what we call them, and like I never got those, but I
Hmm.
was I was pretty nervous, and so I'd be throwing in the bullpen and just trying to get a feel. I try to feel my body because I know when I feel my body, then I'm not so in my head. So I'm like, all right, what does that feel like? What is my ball doing? But I'd use it just as to get warm because the way you feel on the bullpen mound and on the game mound is two different things. So like I never put too much. If I was hitting every spot in the bullpen, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's going to be a good day because there have been times where I hit every spot in the bullpen, went out to the game and walked four people, and vice versa. Um, and so once we got, I was just once I was ready, I would think, all right, get that third out. Get me out of there. Get me out there right now. I want to go out there right now. Like just hurry up. My team's hitting. I want them to hit 3-line drives on first pitches, and them be outs. Like just get me out there as soon as possible or whatever. And so then as soon as those gates opened, whenever I was going good, it was just silence. I would run, and if I was home, I'd hear my walkout music, and I would just be singing those lyrics in my head. If I was away, I would feel the crunching of the grass on my cleats, but I would also hear it. But a lot of times I couldn't really hear it. I just know what it sounds like when it's crunching in the grass and crunching on the ground. So like I would focus on what that sound would be like. Again, just trying to stay within my body, within the moment, because in those situations, you could think about positive things or you can think about negative things, but those things aren't real. That's still not present. So I did my visualization. I did all that stuff before. Now it's go time. Now be present. So I was trying to be as present as possible, hearing the cleats, and then I would like feel the ball in my hand and hear the sound of the ball, and then feel it off my. So it was all about like feeling this exact moment right now because this is where I'm at. And once I got on that game mound, man, it was go time. I was ready to go. And it's one of like that's the feeling other than like completely in flow. That's the feeling I miss the most about baseball is just the adrenaline that gave me. and the power that I felt in those moments, it's unmatched, man. It's it's a crazy drug, I would say.
Well, so first, what was the song that you ran out to? What was your
It was Kanye West Power.
okay?
So when I'd come out, and man, I would have had a dope walkout if they would have allowed me to do the things that I wanted. But back then, it wasn't walkouts weren't like a thing. Like now, like you see Edwin Diaz's walkout, you see some of the closers now they have like cool graphic and all kinds of things, and they turn off the lights. And man, if they would allowed me to do what I wanted to do, it'd have been sick. But right when I opened the gate, I had them play to start the song where it was just clapping. Hey, hey, and I would go. So I'd be running to the beat. And so I was trying to find a video. Someone tagged me in a video a long time ago, and I was trying to find it, but I was running out from the pen. And in my mind, I always felt like I was running to the beat of the song. And I was like, yep, it's confirmed. Like it was a fan's perspective. And I was like, yo, that looks dope. And I watched myself run. I'm like, woo, I look like I'm ready, So like,
You had the trot down. Yeah, that's like a trot to that
yeah.
beat
But
there.
if they would have allowed me to like have the walkout, now this is an extravagant walkout, but I would have ran out. They would have played my song. I would have got to the mound. My back would have been against like to the plate, and I would have raised my hands up like that, and fireworks would have started shooting out of the bases. And like, it'd be a total wrestling one, man. That'd be dope. But no, I would tell some of the guys, like, man, if they let me do that, it's basically a scene out of Eastbound and Down. The
Oh
pitcher, he
man.
comes in and does the same thing. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, the walkouts now are pretty cool, and I wish I would have had like my my chance to do that.
Oh yeah. That's well. That I still like that. That's a good walkout right there. But you're talking about some of that adrenaline, and then do you think that's why some big leaguers? I mean, some can just hit their stride after they're done playing, right? And former athletes, but it's probably impossible to replicate that feeling, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you fill that void these days?
I haven't found a way to fill that exact void. Uh, because yeah, no, I mean, I can drink Red Bulls. I drink like pre-workout. I don't feel any jolt from those things. I can drink a bunch of coffee, and I don't like. I'm just a guy that I think because I was so used to the amount of pressure and adrenaline that comes with closing that there's not really anything that provides the same thing. And I could probably do like skydiving or like stuff like that. I bet that will get the juices going like that. But since I became a father, I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do none of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just because
Yeah.
you got something more important than you, right? If I didn't have uh, a kid and one on the way, your boy might be jumping out of planes or doing some crazy stuff, So I'm glad that I think that right there, yeah, I guess that did fill my void because it something else more important than me has come along. You know what I mean? I think that becoming a dad really helped the transition for me. Well, it helped and hurt because it gave me a sense of what real love is, unconditional love. But it hurt because I didn't, it came so quickly that I didn't really have a chance to mourn the loss of my career, basically. And like really sort through those emotions. Again, some it's easier for some people, maybe because some people have better talent, or maybe they weren't all in as me, or whatever it is. The relationship to their sport was separate than them. But for me, I had the talent, and I didn't have that type of talent to be separate. It had to be one thing, and so I lived and breathed off of my successes and my failures, and it gave me a sense of identity. It gave me a sense of like finally being looked at as the type of person that I wanted to be. And then when that was cut, it was like, oh no, what do I do now? Like I identified as a baseball player, you know what I mean? First over a human,
Mhm.
So uh um I needed, or I didn't have the time to really sort through that. But you know, becoming a dad, just kind of switched gears for me. And it made the transition easier. And I still, have time to deal with the transition of, my mindset and stuff. But I suspect that that's going to be continually evolving. And I don't think we ever stop evolving. So this is going to be a process, so it's something that I made my peace with so far. So we'll see
Mhm.
what the next step brings.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, no, definitely. So I mean, the end of your career too, like it was a couple injuries, right? I mean, so it was kind of things that were out of your control. Well, I think you've said it before that you are what did you say? Like it because you wanted to do too much or something on those lines, like that's kind of how you ended up getting hurt. But at the end of the day, it's like you've played however many years in the big leagues, and then it was injuries that kind of forced you out of the game. But um, yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I was very fortunate, and that was the thing that I came up with, at the end that gave me some peace was like, man, I had a pretty long career. You know what I mean? It was a great career. I got to be an all-star. There was a lot of things that I got to achieve that baseball gave me that I'm very thankful for. And I think when you start to really be grateful for whatever space you're in right now is whenever you're able to heal from everything, because everything is just is perspective, how you look at things. I could look at my situation and think about, man, I was coming up on making a bunch of money. If I would have been, healthy, I could have been X amount of this, and off of that, I could have been like, oh, if I wouldn't have done this, and if I would have did, I could look at it in a way that can really piss myself off. You know what I mean? Or I can look at it in a way that was like, man, I'm very, very blessed to be able to have played this game as long as I did, and to get everything out of it, because look at my skill set and my talents, and my attributes. I outperformed all of it. And so life's all about perspective. So I think, changing that perspective of like, I can't believe I got hurt, and I put in so much work to repair this shoulder, and then it ended up tearing again. I can't, it's unfair. And it's like, it's not unfair. like, like you threw until you could not throw no more,
Hmm.
and your body just gave out. That's it. So um that I rested my head on my pillow like easy at night, because I gave everything I had, and I made a lot happen within that time period.
Absolutely, man. That's yeah, that's such a cool outlook. It's so true on the perspective part of it. But it seems like you've got an entrepreneurial spirit too in you, because you wanted to launch what you're doing now with the locker room. Maybe if you could just share a little bit about that, because like you said, you're trying to give maybe an inside look into the mindset of not just baseball players but other athletes. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, man. It's something that um when I was done with baseball, I was thinking about like, what do I want to do? Like, I can do anything. And um just coming up with what I wanted to do was tough, because all I've ever thought about was being a Major League Baseball player. Not like I knew there was going to be a point in time where I was done playing, but I was like, I never thought about what I was going to do after. It's like I stopped my dream too short, and I was like, man, I like acting, I like all these different things, but like I'm not really like, I don't know, maybe if like someone was like, hey, I want you to be in your movie, then in my movie, like, come on, like other than that, like I'm not really willing to put in the work maybe to be an actor or singer or whatever, entertainer. So I was thinking about, I love working out. I love talking shop, mental stuff. Love talking about the game. Um, how can I get paid off of that? How can I do something off of that? And I love helping people. How can I do that? Well, what is something that I can do? And I thought of this show. I was like, this is a great thing, because um, on a couple of episodes, I'm working out with an athlete, and it interests me because I'm like, every athlete works out differently depending on their what their sport is, what position they are, all those different things. So um, I was really interested in that, and I get to work out. Something that I still do almost every day is work out, do different workouts, and so just I love talking about athletes. Like, why do you do this certain exercise? How does this make you a better basketball, baseball, tennis, whatever player, athlete? And then there's other parts of the game that, like recovery. I just interviewed Joe Adele, and he plays for the Angels. Alfred is for the Angels,
Hmm.
and we did an interview on his roof doing contrast therapy. So ice tub, cold tub, and just doing different things. So I want to show all the different ways that athlete basically, recovery, working out, just having a sit down. Um, I'm gonna go to somebody's house and they're gonna have a chef, and we're gonna talk over eating and how important is the chef, how important is your diet. You know, I'm gonna go golf with somebody and do an interview doing playing golf. A couple holes, we'll stop and talk about, ask a few questions, then we'll just keep playing golf. Just and some people that's what they like to do. Some people may want to fish. Some people may want to go bowling. I'll do an interview. I want to absorb myself in their life, and at whatever point, if it's their workout, if it's their leisure time, if it's their practice, whatever it is, I want to be there because I want to show the different parts of it. I want you to be I want the audience to feel as if it's a fly on a wall. They're a fly on a wall listening to athletes talk. And if I don't have access to them in person, then I'm gonna sit down and do a podcast with them. Whatever way that I can get to an athlete is what I'm gonna do. And because I feel like a lot of people love hearing stories about these athletes and getting insight. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand how smart some of these guys are, and they may not be smart in politics or in math or whatever, all these different things, but in their particular sport, a lot of them have some good insight into how that they tick, and how they optimize their day and routines to be the best athlete they can.
Oh yeah, man. People love that kind of stuff, especially these days. There's so much content, but
Yeah.
quality content like that, I feel like it's tough to get the behind the scenes look at a lot of these guys and girls routines and just how they've gotten to the point that they are. Um, your trainer, I think it was your trainer coming up. Does he train a lot of professional athlete? It seemed like that's what he's been doing forever. He seems like an animal, that guy.
Man, he is an animal. He did a lot of triathlons,
Yeah.
decathlons, and all kinds of different things. I used to think we would work out and he'd be pushing us so hard, and I would think like, I don't like anybody pushing me this hard that I don't feel can do these things. And he came to where he worked out with us one day and killed it. I'm like, damn. And then he did another like workout after or something like that. And I'm like, all right, all right, all right. Like, I'll listen to anything you say. But he trains other athletes, singers, celebrities. He trains everybody, man. So like, he was a good resource, and he was one of the best. He's one of the best trainers that I've had, because he just knew how to push me and push each individual. For me, I mean, one of the things he would always do is we would say, all right, last set, try to hit this number. And, obviously your last set, you crush it. And whatever it is, it's like something cardio or maybe a lift or something. And I would crush it. And he's like, oh, man, you look pretty good on that. Let's do another one. And I'm like, damn. But maybe he wouldn't do that with other people, but he knew that I had that extra gear. Similar to what my dad saw in me, that like there's something that you see in me when I'm in those situations that you're like, yeah, you can do more. You can do more. You can handle more is what it is. And that thought of you can handle more, like, has taken me, very, very far, like through hard times or whatever it is. It's like, this is hard, but you can handle more. You can do more. So that's that. Now I'm starting to have a better relationship with like those words that my dad told me, like, oh, but you, what about those 5 people you walked, you know, instead of being like, oh, that means that I'm not good enough. No, it means that you can be better, So that's a simple like twist and of perspective. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that you can be better. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's a simple statement, but um, it was big for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a behind the scenes look of a mindset of a all-star major league closer. So it's like, yeah, just some of these nuggets that you drop, and just from listening to other episodes, man, it's really cool. I wanted to just ask you too about your faith a little bit too, because I've heard you discuss that a bit,
Yeah.
and then maybe even like I don't know what you have. I know this is kind of personal, maybe, but like tattoos on your arm, are those faith related or how those tie in?
Yeah. So the tattoos on my arm, it tells like a little story. Um, it's like it's self-made man. It's that statue that like the guy's like carving out his self, and on my chest there's an angel, and that represents like all of my ancestors or like the people who have passed that are watching over me, and as I am uh, making myself guided through the light of God, and there's a sunlight. So it's like, yeah, it's self-made man, but behind that is a whole lot of other people that are helping me, right? But so that was like the story behind that, and then just my heritage, like the Mexican heritage, and there's a pyramid there, and there's um, uh, a moon. There's all kinds of just different things there. I plan on getting another one, and that's going to be really cool. I had to really thought out process. So maybe I'll share that next time
Hmm,
I get it.
there you go.
But the faith part carried me through, you know, all my career. And I think, you know, um, when you're coming up and you want to be a big leaguer, it's just a dream. And it's a the odds of being able to make it is is crazy. So you got to have faith. And all my life going to church, um, and learning about the Word of God, and learning what it means to have faith, allowed me to continue to believe that it was possible. And I think that for me, really helped me through hard times, because when I the times where I didn't feel like as much of a possibility as before, that little nugget of faith was like, yeah, but you're going to get there. Believe and know that you're going to get there. And it's through learning the faith in religion, So, um, I'm, I may not go to church, as much as I used to, but the spirituality is still there. And um, I still do prayer like things. I still give gratitude. I still understand that there's a higher power. There's a connection to everything that we're doing, and I try to acknowledge that as much as possible. And the best way to do that is through gratitude. And so I try to be thankful for even my problems, because there's some people out there with even greater problems. So I always try to keep perspective on that.
100%, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I know that was kind of a double question there with the the tattoos and weaving that into the faith, but I guess they kind of tie in.
They tied in.
I was just curious about it because you see a lot of pro athletes, maybe even more so now. Like they kind of credit their success to like a greater being. Like the Lions kicker just the other day kicks the game winning field goal, and then after the game he's talking about like, yeah, it was faith related, or he's like, I'm just trying to.
That was the guy that was like selling bricks or something before,
Yeah,
right?
he's selling bricks. I haven't read the full story, but yeah, he was selling bricks
I saw
recently. And
that.
now he's literally an NFL kicker, and the Lions are the best team in the league. It's wild. Yeah,
And he's having fun.
he's
That's
having
the thing.
fun. That's a great
He's
point.
making those field goals and dancing, and like you
It's
can see the joy on him, and that's part of you. There's got to be a balance of that stuff, because you
hmm
can be so over analytical or so into something that you make it you make it harder on yourself. You add extra pressure, but when you have that lightness, that allows you to see situations as not as stress or not as pressure. You're just like, oh, I just got to kick this ball through that hole. You know what I mean? And when you're able to simplify things like that, it's a little easier.
Definitely, man, definitely. So, listen, AJ, just thanks for your time, man. I was super excited to talk to you, and like I'm just happy that we were able to connect. And for folks that want to maybe check out what you're doing with the locker room and just what you're building there, would you mind just giving a shout out to that and where they can find you?
Yeah, it's the locker room with AJ TLR with AJ on Instagram, and on YouTube. like and subscribe. I'm trying to come up with different ways to just make the page better, just to be more interactive. So we're gaining a lot of subscribers, which is pretty cool. And so, yeah, I look forward to continue to grow and do what you're doing, man. I mean, we're sitting there, we're talking about the mindsets. We're just exploring the minds of athletes. And I feel like, and what I want to provide is something as like an educational thing, you know, because everyone has a different process. So what I'm saying may resonate with few, but not with others. But you interview someone else, and that may resonate with those ones that I didn't resonate with, and not with the ones that I did. So everyone has different ways of doing it, and the more people that we interview, the more minds we get into, the more people we educate, and the more people we educate, the more people have a higher chance of being successful because they're implementing people who have success and who have found success. They're implementing their strategies and mindsets into their own life. And at first it'll be oh, I'm copying this. And then it'll be like, oh, okay, I get what he's saying, but this little piece doesn't really vibe with me. And you kind of start peeling those things away and make it fit your lifestyle. And that only can be done by interviews like this, right? So I think what we're both doing is pretty cool, man. And thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, just so many of those stories from previous interviews and just people that I've talked to, that you just see recurring themes kind of coming up. But to your point, in different in different ways, it's interesting, man.
Everyone's saying the same thing,
Yeah,
but in a different way, right? So that's the cool thing about it, and all the different ways that is being said is going to resonate and land with somebody.
love it. AJ Ramos, appreciate you, man. This is awesome.
Sure.
All righty.